And welcome to the Strike Show. I'm your host, Sean Hartnett. Joining me as ever is sound fiddler himself, Michael Chubb.
Hello. Fiddler's definitely your worst title by far at this point.
So. Yeah, I'm going to work my way through them. I mean, I don't know how many episodes he's planning on doing, but, eventually it's going to become very tenuous. If you think that's bad, wait till the future. I'm going to be coming up with awful ones. They will be so much more noticeably bad than that one.
Lord have mercy.
In the news this week, we have the UN's weirdest crimes. There was a report by Vice News this week, an organization I'm not too keen on, to be honest. They're very, what's the word? Liberal. They're just, in fact, I used to subscribe to their YouTube channel up until about 3 months ago, when they came out with an entirely new channel called Broadly, which is spelled Broadly, which is entirely dedicated to women. So, combating sexism by just making entire channels dedicated to women who, rather ironically, stereotype women beyond belief by doing reports on handbags and shopping and food and yada yada yada. So it's just one of those organizations that's so crippled by the fear, and you probably won't even be able to say that word fairly soon, crippled by the fear of being accused of being sexist, that they entirely go to the other end of the spectrum and show just how unsexist they are by just being sexist the other way. So, needless to say, I shan't be watching one of their videos again. And it's a shame, because every now and again they did do pretty good ones, pretty good investigative reports. Anyway, this headline was too juicy not to comment on. They actually found out this report that was done on the UN. And it says, staff at the United Nations downloaded and shared child porn, transported roughly 380 pounds of weed in an official vehicle, and repeatedly threatened each other with murder, according to an annual report on disciplinary matters and cases of criminal behavior issued by the international organization. The report, carried out by the UN Secretariat, covers the period between July 2014 and June of this year. It does not name the staff involved, their nationalities, or where their offences took place. Perhaps most alarmingly, 4 UN employees were dismissed for receiving, storing, and disseminating pornographic images of minors on their official computers and over UN networks. It was unclear if their home countries had filed charges against the 4 unnamed individuals. A 5th staff member who stored adult pornographic material on a UN computer was demoted and blocked from being promoted for a period of 2 years. It's unbelievable. I mean, it's kind of like those stories you hear about those charities like Oxfam and stuff, about what they do with your money. I remember reading a report, I think it was last year, about how the money you give to Oxfam, and this is all above board legitimate, by the way, this isn't fucking rumor or conspiracy theory, this is outright fact. The money you give to them, a considerable amount of it is spent on making Oxfam more money. So kind of like how that, what was the thing, the invisible child thing, that Coney 2012 thing from a couple of years ago, how they did that pie chart and they found that a lot of their money was like 80% of it was going on promotion and advertising about themselves. It was making little High School Musical type videos to basically indoctrinate more children and get more donations and things like that. And it was kind of like a vicious cycle. Oxfam was doing the same thing, but theirs were so much worse. The things they were spending it on were they were employing people in Africa on a pittance wage to harvest tobacco, which was obviously then used to make cigarettes, was then sold back to the people at an extortionate rate, crippling them financially and just also in general, their health. And they were the same with alcohol, making alcohol, and they were even invested in the arms trade. They were making guns that were then being sold back to the Africans. And making a killing over it, if you'll excuse the pun. But it's exactly like this, in that the UN, it's meant to be the antithesis of this. It's not even just some fucking organized crime syndicate. Well, not officially. It's like, it's not it's meant to do the exact opposite. It's like you can't even just write this off as some fucking corporation that's a bit shit. You know, like, they're known for being a ragamuffin bunch. Like, this is the UN. This is meant to be the organization that helps people, that, you know, unites nations to get them into the same room so they can better the world. And they're just being fucking pricks about it. I mean, the weed, you know, that's kind of becoming legalized and stuff all around the world anyway, so most people don't really care that much about it. But the child porn, and it's like, there's no justification for it, you know? It's just the exact antithesis of what they're fucking meant to be doing. It's just so much more shit when they do it as opposed to other people. But anyway, we have a story coming out of China. Male rape is now a crime in China. Yeah, that happened this week in 2015. The sexual assault on men is now a crime after China effected an amendment to the criminal law. Indecent or sexual assault on others, men or women, now carries a minimum sentence of 5 years in prison. In the former law, the clause, quote, others, meant only, quote, women. The amendment was passed by the top legislature in August, as Xinhua news agency reported. It's just one of those things that I guess is technically good. You know, you should be like, okay, well done. But it's like, why wasn't this done sooner? I hate to be that kind of guy, because I was saying the same thing about MGM, male genital mutilation in Nigeria this year was just made illegal. And you're thinking to yourself, like, well, are we really going to applaud this? You know, I kind of have the same feeling about people who are on drugs and then get off them. It's like they get the applause, they get all the family rallies around them, and oh, aren't they so brave? And yeah, I guess technically, well done them. But what about the rest of us who have never done it? What about the rest of us who have not been addicted to drugs for all our lives? Where's our applause? Like, where the fuck's our little, you know, celebration? We kept ourselves correct all our life. That takes more fucking courage and strength and fortitude and integrity to do. Like, why does China and Nigeria get the fucking applause for finally becoming somewhat civilized? Ugh. As under the previous law, people faced a maximum 15 years in prison for sex with prostitutes less than 14 years old, and those convicted of raping a child may be sentenced to death. Well, at least they're doing something right. We have a story, a lot of migrant news, to be honest. Too much, some would say. If any of these stories were on their own, like if this wasn't a huge collective story where loads of little things are coming out every single day that are mind-blowing, any one of these could stand on their own merit and be front page news. But it's just because they're absorbed into the entire migration story that's been happening for at least half this year. It almost doesn't even seem like a big story anymore. Like news, like the nightly news has almost stopped reporting on it because it's just too similar. It's just, there is only so many times you can be shocked by the exorbitant numbers of whatever it is. Numbers coming into Greece, numbers coming into Turkey, numbers coming into Scandinavia, Germany, France, whatever it is. Numbers of you know, Africans that are in the so-called jungle in Calais that are being electrocuted on a nightly basis because they're jumping on fucking trains. You know, the numbers of people who are dying because of drowning in the Mediterranean. Like, there's only so many numbers you can fucking compute. But yeah, and of course this then coupled with the tragedy that happened last week with the Bataclan attack, where 130 people were killed. I'm not sure how many were injured. I think it was north of 500. But 130 of them were shot like fucking dogs in the street. And I mean, I've seen the pictures. The stadium, not stadium, but the theater, the Bataclan theater. It was a literal bloodbath. I mean, it's foul. You see the streets, you see the bits of fucking guts from the suicide bombers like strewn about the streets when they blew themselves up. You know, it's foul. I mean, I think, like most people, I was you know, reading articles and watching the videos and stuff online, and I couldn't get over the numbers. That was a number that shocked me, even amongst all of this. 130. I couldn't believe it. It was. What did you think when you were seeing that, Michael? It was. I just 130. I couldn't get over it.
I think it's a case of. I mean, obviously the number sort of shocked me, but it didn't shock me until I kind of realised. Should we say the situation, the fact that it's France, it's France, which is one close to home, obviously, because given our geographical distance to France, but also in a sense of something of this magnitude hitting somewhere so
civilized.
Yeah. So I guess I think it just sort of, like a lot of people, I was a lot more kind of not as aware of the whole Syria situation. I have my own opinions and stuff, but not
And do pray tell, what are those
don't
opinions,
know everything
Michael?
at the moment. But I definitely did not research enough into it to I thought it's all going on over there, but now over there is over here. So I think it's awful, and it's, I don't know, the number is, when you think about it, and then it's a number that, like, if it was 130 in Syria or somewhere further away, you're like, oh, okay, somewhere else. But then you're like, oh, it's in France, in Paris. Oh, fuck.
That's a thing that not a lot of people want to acknowledge, by the way, is that, I mean, I probably wasn't the only one who was angered by the Middle Easterners who were here and abroad that were saying things like, oh, this happens in Lebanon, every week. This happens in, fucking Bahrain every week. This happens in, Iraq. It's like, well, yeah, so what? So fucking what? You did that to yourselves. It was your shit society built on fucking barbaric priorities that did it to yourself. What did you expect when you keep women locked up for all fucking day? You don't allow them out the house. You don't allow them to talk to men. You don't allow them to go and get a job and allow them to contribute tax to the economy, which would better your society. You could invest in education and infrastructure and safety and health. Like, how do you not realize how all these little things feed into one another? How do you not realize that not being able to tax 50% of your adult population is going to severely hinder your fucking growth? How do you not realize that chucking homosexuals off a building, and it's not the fucking radicals, by the way, you see the crowds all there cheering and whooping, you see the fucking almost gladiatorial arenas where people just sit down like it's a day out at fucking London Zoo to watch the lions prance about. But they throw them off the fucking buildings, they hang them, they stone women, they execute them, they line up all those fucking poor fuckers in orange jumpsuits and just shoot them in the back of the head. Like, how do you not realize that all these things that are everyday occurrences in your country are gonna fucking severely hinder your country's progress? Like, I don't understand the complacency, the naivety, the borderline denial on these people's parts, and acting like everything can be explained by the white man's colonialism. That, like, oh, you did this to us hundreds of years ago and now we're fucked forever. It's so childish almost to think that still matters. Hundreds of different cultures and peoples have been, sort of almost borderline stamped out. They've had severe hardships placed upon them, and they've come back. They've rallied. I mean, the fucking Irish famine. There was 8 million people in Ireland, and then the famine hit. 4 million of them died. Half the fucking population died. Another half of that population, 2 million, then emigrated. So within the space of a couple of years, you were down to a quarter of your population, most of them starving. You had so many different awful travesties happening. The rapes, the workhouses, the slave wages, the forced conversions to Protestantism, things like that. Like, you had so many different things that happened to one nation, to one people, because of a fucking blight. And just when you think that they can't come back, they do. Ireland is a first world country now. It's perfectly livable. I've spent some time there. It's fine. You know, you can choose to be a victim all your life. Not even all of your life. All of your family's lives, all of your generations' lives, all your ancestors' lives. This spans people's lives. This is more than that. This is hundreds of years. People choose to just be victims and blame everyone else but themselves, completely ignorant of the thousands of examples of other cultures and peoples that have rallied back from hardships. And yes, believe it or not, white people have had to go through some shit as well. We've been slaves for other people. In fact, I think, I remember reading that if you added up all the slaves that white people ever owned, they wouldn't be more numerous than the amount of white people that were owned by just Middle Easterners. So, you know, everyone has their fucking troubles. Every culture rises and falls. Everyone has their peaks and troughs. Fucking get over it. You know, stop being in denial. It's like, it was really a matter of time before these kinds of atrocities in the Middle East and stuff happened, because when you base your society on such abominable principles, then that's fine. But guess what? Paris isn't that place. Paris is, what's the phrase? Liberté, sécurité, and authority. I don't know. What was the other one? I don't know. Whatever it was, but it's that. It's, you know, France is known for the French Revolution, overthrowing that fucking stifling monarchy and being a republic. It's known for its culture. It's not even its culture. It's one of the best cultures in the world. Its artisans are fucking famous. You've artists, you've musicians. It's not even a culture. It's the culture. It's one of the best places to live in the world. Its healthcare system is one of the best, as evidenced in Michael Moore's documentary Sicko. You know, it's brilliant, and it's kind of like a symptom of the slow suicide, not homicide, but suicide that they're going through by allowing barbarians through the gates. Historically, you always shut the gates. You didn't allow them in, or if you wanted to boost or bolster your workforce, you allowed some in, and then you allowed them to assimilate for a bit. You allowed them to adopt the culture, and, you know, you allowed them to mix and all that kind of thing. And then that generally strengthened your culture, and you all progressed together. But guess what? The majority of the world is starving. The majority of the world is in war-torn places. The majority of the world is poor. The majority of the world is uneducated. The majority of the world is suffering just in general. I was going to finish that sentence, but no, they're just suffering. But you can't take them all in. A solution isn't to open the gates and allow everyone to move to one side of the world and expect that we will all survive together. No, we won't. We'll just all go down together. Again, if you have 500 people on a boat that supports 500, you can't just add another 500 to it and not expect it to sink. There is a capacity at which some people can live and some people can't, or we all can't. It's just economics. There is only a finite amount of money. There is only a finite amount of food. There is only a finite amount of space. There is only a finite amount of jobs. There is only a finite amount of almost anything. The solution isn't to just throw open the gates and say, c'est la vie. But anyway, like I said, a lot of migrant news. We have a projection again. I fucking called this a couple of weeks ago. I said they're getting you used to certain numbers, like, oh, it's only 20,000 we're going to accept by, 2020? Oh, it's only, Germany's only taken in, Sweden's only taken in 100,000. Now it's 300,000. Oh, Germany's only taking in 800,000. Watch the numbers slowly rise. They're massaging you. If they told you the real number to begin with, there would be revolution in the streets. But now they're just slowly, incrementally going up. And listen to this number that was released this week. 3 million migrants are likely to arrive in Europe by 2017 as the record influx via the Mediterranean continues. The European Commission says, not UKIP, not the BNP, not some fucking propaganda party. The European Commission says. The EU's executive arm says the influx would have a small but positive effect on EU economic output, raising GDP by 0.2 to 0.3%. The influx will raise the EU population by 0.4%, The Commission forecasts taking account of failed asylum claims. The flow of Syrian refugees to Europe shows no sign of abating. The weather in the Aegean Sea has gotten rougher with the onset of winter, but Peter Sutherland, the UN Secretary General, Ban Ki-moon's special representative on migration, said that Syrians were not put off by that. The Syrian war is driving people to desperation in terms of leaving, and it will continue in its effects, he told the BBC. This is now a global responsibility, but it is a particular European responsibility. Oh, of course it is, because we deserve this, because we're self-flagellating, emasculated, cuckold beta males. Ugh. 5,000 daily. Migrants, not cuckolds, although probably them too. Conflicts and abuses in Iraq, Afghanistan, Eritrea, and Somalia. I love the fucking disparate nature of that casual list. It's like, just a couple of... No, that spans Africa all the way across the fucking continent, all the way across the peninsula, all the way across to the other side of the Middle fucking East. I don't know what the number is, but I would imagine that's probably about a fifth to a quarter of the world. And again, it just shows you the disingenuous nature of how they initially report these things. Remember, this all started with just the Syrians. This was just Bashar al-Assad. This was just ISIS there, taking a few cities. Now it's just being used to shoehorn everything in. It's now Eritrea, it's Somalia, it's Iraq, it's Afghanistan. And you see this with the stories that are coming out about the fake passports being bought on the black market. In fact, a reporter actually did an experiment. He gave the passport to the guy who basically puts the pictures and stuff on. But here's the thing. The profile of the person that he gave, like the name and the picture and stuff, was actually the Prime Minister of Belgium. And obviously the fucking passport guy didn't realize, like, why would he be somewhat educated? But so he actually, and he got the passport back. I think it was for like €700. But he actually forged a Syrian passport using the Belgian Prime Minister's identity. That's how fucking easy these are to make, and that's how easy the passport is to use, that it can just fucking get you through and into Europe. So it just doesn't mean anything anymore. Any country, it's like the country's names don't even matter anymore. It's just a collective brown people. If you're brown, we'll take you in. It's like, it's fine. It doesn't matter if you're all the way in Africa or all the way in the Middle East. It doesn't matter if you're... just say you're fleeing from a war. I mean, it used to be that you have to falsely declare that you were homosexual, and that was your ticket in, because of, I'll be executed back in my own country and things like that. But now it's just, just if you're brown, yeah, come on through, wave you in. So, there's 5,000 a day coming in. I mean, I'm not even going to go through all these stories that are coming in about the migrants. I'm literally just going to read the headlines, and they're enough. They are literally enough on their own. Hang on, let's go to the next one. That is, the leaders meet in Europe to discuss... Oh, by the way, European Union leaders and African leaders. So basically completely acknowledging the fact that it is absolutely just Africans as well coming in. Why not? Why not join the party? Not Middle Easterners, not fleeing from that specific war, not fleeing from ISIS or anything. Just everyone come on in. Somewhat conveniently, another boat sank while they were there, and they rescued 27 survivors. Again, hammering home the point, like people like Merkel and stuff will use that to leverage their point. They'll say, we have to stop things like this, but completely unaware of the irony that it's her that's encouraging them to come because of what she's doing. Opening the border gets more people like this trying things like this. Again, it's taking the responsibility off of the shoulders of the people who deserve it. It's like it's consoling the parents of the little Alan kid who washed up and started the whole propaganda bandwagon, when in actuality you should be arresting them for endangering their child's lives. If that happened the other way around, if they did anything remotely similar here in the West, they would be locked up for years. And yet they choose to take their toddler child on a boat, as many of these parents have done, and then on fucking risking the worst weather Europe has ever had, on a rinky-dink fucking paddling boat with no safety precautions, Inevitably, shitloads of them die, adults and kids, and no one is held accountable. The people who ran the boat and got the money and charged these poor fuckers thousands to get on the boat, they aren't arrested because they fuck off. They know the fucking routine. They got off the boat first. And they paddle away in with their fucking thousands. But the parents aren't held accountable. Their other children aren't taken away. No, we console them. We cry with them. We blame right-wingers. We say, oh, look, evil white men, why aren't you allowing all these thousands of people in? And, look, these deaths are on your shoulders. No, they're on the fucking enabler's shoulders. Why do you don't enable bad behavior in anyone else and expect to get rewarded in it? We mentioned the fucking a drug addict before. A person who buys that drug addict drugs, you don't congratulate them for it. You don't say, oh, you're doing a good job helping him. No, you fucking condemn that person. You hold them equally as accountable for that drug addict's bad behavior. You're saying that you're causing them to go into a deeper spiral. So why the fuck isn't the same principle being applied to migration? So, the leaders are meeting in Europe now, and just, I guess, to conjure up what number they're going to jump to next. 800,000 migrants have arrived in Europe by sea so far in 2015, whilst some 3,440 have died or gone missing making the journey. I mean, that is literally 9/11. That is over 9/11. 9/11 was 3,000. That's 3,440. It's unfucking believable. Some 150,000 people from African countries such as Eritrea, Nigeria, and Somalia have made the dangerous journey across the Mediterranean from Africa so far this year, arriving mainly in Italy and Malta. It's again, I don't even have time to go through all the fucking story. The European Commission is setting up a 1.8 billion trust fund for Africa and has urged member states to match that sum. However, there are doubts as to whether or not they will do so. Yeah, why not? Africa deserves it. Yeah, why not? Just give them all the money. That'll solve everything. Yeah, I'm sure they won't ask for more. It's not like Red Nose Day happens every fucking year. We have a story coming out from the German Interior Ministry saying that the German suspension of Dublin rules for Syrians has ended. The Dublin regulation, of course, being the rule that basically states that any migrant to the EU, illegal migrant, has to register in the first country that they step foot in. So if you arrived in Greece by a boat, that was the one you had to register in. Of course, this didn't suit a lot of them because they weren't actually fleeing from anything like a war or religious persecution or anything like that. They were fleeing to something. They had specific information that was passed through their friends and family that was telling them the countries with the best benefits and health system, education, and where they get the free houses and yada, yada, yada. So a lot of them are holding out for Germany, Scandinavia, the UK. We have, we have it from the horse's mouths. I mean, you've seen the videos of them basically saying they don't want to be in Greece or any of the Eastern Bloc countries. That regulation was suspended at the behest of Germany. Merkel herself was allowing the migrants to enter all the way straight to Germany, which may as well mean the rest of Europe because Germany is in the heart of Europe. So they're not going to be fucking catapulted into Germany. They had to travel somehow to there. So they passed through any country they wanted, and they could just run from Germany in any direction they wanted once they got there. It wasn't like they were being kept by some fence on the outside. They got into the heart of it and then just spread from there. And so when Germany doomed itself, it kind of doomed the rest of us down with them. And now this policy has backfired so much that the Ministry of the Interior has now suspended the Dublin regulation because too many people applied. Too many people came to the country, more than they were actually expecting, even with their inflated numbers and saying like, oh, this is the worst case scenario. It was worse than that. So they've actually had to suspend the suspension, or they've had to, suspend the suspension. They've gotten rid of the suspension of the Dublin rules. And so now they've put limits back in place. This is pretty much a damning indictment of Merkel's policy, a massive boomerang for her. And this in the same week, by the way, that the Swedish have introduced border checks, which they didn't have before because they, again, thought they didn't need it. But the mass outbreak of crime, rapes are up 1,400%. The rampant crime that's been going on has actually forced them to reevaluate their policies. It says here, Sweden has brought temporary border checks to control the flow of migrants into the country, and said that it took the step to, because there was a surge in new arrivals that had resulted in a threat to public order. At a summit in Malta, EU President Donald Tusk, what was the name of the guy from House of Cards? That was Raymond Tusk. I was going to say, it's a very powerful name. They're saving the EU's Schengen rules on free movement was a race against time. So it's just more of the same. Again, no country really realizing the extent to which that they fucked themselves over. Massive boomerang policies on all of these liberal countries. Stuff from migrant news. We'll save some for next week. It's too much. Although by that there'll probably be a glut of that as well. We have a story here in the UK. Bahar Mustafa. You may recognize the name. Charges against the diversity officer dropped. A London student union officer accused of posting the phrase "kill all white men" on social media has had the charges against her dropped. Bahar Mustafa, 28. Why is she still in university? She's probably one of those hipsters that tries to pretend they're younger than they are. 28 had faced charges of allegedly sending an offensive, indecent, obscene, or menacing message. The Crown Prosecution Service said that there was not enough evidence to provide a realistic prospect of conviction. I'm not sure how that's possible when you have direct written proof from her profiles saying "kill all white men." I'm not sure what kind of proof you need. Apparently not enough proof. But yeah, I mean, she was the one, if you remember, she set up a protest. Here it is. It says it was previously reported that Miss Mustafa was alleged to have posted an event invitation on Facebook, which has since been taken down, that said, "Invite loads of BME women," which I think stands for Black, Minority and Ethnic Women, and non-binary people. So I'm guessing that's gender-wise. Non-binary meaning people who don't identify as men or women. So the whole genderqueer, what's the word? Hermaphrodite. That's it. All that kind of stuff. The other category. She wanted all these people to come specifically. But it's then a little addendum to it. It says, also, if you've been invited and you're a man and or white, capitals, please don't come. Just because I invited a bunch of people and hope you will be responsible enough to respect that this is a BME women and non-binary event only. I mean, it's compounding that thing I said before about how, like Vice, wanting to appear so unsexist that they go all the way to the opposite end of the spectrum and just appear sexist again. And this type of shit saying, like, it used to be that segregation was bad. It used to be that separating people and saying these people can't do this while these can, that used to be rallied against. It used to be rallied against by people who called themselves feminists, the true feminists, the first and second wave feminists. But now this is the modern day third wave feminist. This is the type of person who actively encourages segregation, separatism, but the other way around. And then they don't expect to be called out on their hypocrisy. I don't understand that mentality. It's so fucking counterintuitive. What do you think, Michael?
I think it's one of those, the feminazi thing, isn't it?
Feminazi,
That's on the internet. It's feminazis, which, not strictly the nicest thing to call someone, but I get the point in terms of it's the distinguishing factor between a feminist and a feminazi. A feminist is actually an equalist, and a feminazi is someone who's anti-men or equality, essentially.
Well, you'd think, though, but the word feminism is ultimately unnecessary in the first place because there is already a movement for equality. It's called egalitarianism. It's the belief that everyone is equal. Specifying it and making women a subset of that only seeks to not only victimize them and make them a token objectified person, but also it is counterproductive because the benefits that you do get for it often come at a cost to everyone else. There is a reason why when you say to a feminist you're not for equality and they go, yes, we are, and then you go to them, well, then how come I never hear you complaining about men's issues like unfair custody laws, unfair divorce laws, unfair alimony laws, unfair adoption laws, unfair abortion laws, all these different things? They then shut the fuck up because they're not for equality. They're for the betterment of their own group. That isn't equality. Feminism is an unnecessary term. Feminazi, that is kind of a necessary term. It's very appropriate. And it's essentially just analogous to a new phrase that's sort of popped up on the internet now, liberal fascism, which is a fairly appropriate term in that they are as fascistic about their policies as actual fascists were. So, you know, it's you can see the comparison fairly evidently. So, yeah, it's a shame. I mean, again, I feel sort of conflicted about this story because in as much as I fucking hate her and she is the definition of a cunt, I just think that, like, prosecuting people for free speech is a very dicey move. And it's like, what's that phrase? I may not agree with what you say, but I will die for your right to defend it. No, for your right to say it. Or whatever the fuck it was, you know what I mean. But yeah, it's like that. It's like I really don't agree with her if I haven't made that obvious yet. But I at the same point, I just don't think that she should be held criminally responsible. I don't think it's an issue for the courts. I think that if people don't like what she says, they can just turn off. They can choose to go away from the computer. They can go to another website. They can unfollow her. They can stay the fuck away from her. She is not the only crazy person in the world. There are many of them. They used to just walk about on streets and you would not look them in the eye and walk around them and carry on living your life and let that person carry on living theirs. Now it feels like people have to stamp out everything, and the internet is just one massive Medusa's head. You chop off one and two will come back in its place. There will be 2 more feminazis bred in the time it takes me to finish this sentence. Stamping them out is just a global game of fucking whack-a-mole. It's not gonna work. This won't ever end. So don't even fucking bother. Just let people like this have their say, and the court of public opinion will decide. It's a meritocracy. It's an opinion meritocracy. The ones that are people agree with will rise to the top. The cream of ideologies will rise to the top, and people will follow them or they won't. Don't prosecute people like this because it gives them legitimacy. It makes them appear like a martyr. You're persecuting them, and they're going to be famous for their cause and stuff. It should be so evident that things like this don't work, and nor should they work, because tomorrow we'll wake up and we'll be North Korea. So that is that for gender. A little bit of entertainment news, somewhat coincidentally. I love just pointing these out. Sci-Fi acquires female Van Helsing series with Neil LaBute as showrunner. Sci-Fi has acquired a female take on Van Helsing, I don't know, probably Vanessa Helsing, from Nomadic Pictures with Neil LaBute set as showrunner. The 13 episode, by the way, I guarantee you that will be lessened to 10, maybe even 8. The 13-episode, hour-long series reimagines the Dracula mythology with the resurrection of... Oh, Vanessa Helsing, I fucking told you. I was taking the piss before when I said Vanessa Helsing. They just went with it. I wasn't even fucking thinking about designing this TV show, and I farted it out of my mind in 5 seconds, the concept. And already they've just fucking proved me right. Vanessa Helsing, the next in line of a lineage of warriors who must now lead mankind against a world controlled by vampires. Why wouldn't she be a warrior? Why wouldn't she? I mean, it's only probably, the 17th, 18th century? I mean, women didn't even have rights yet. They couldn't vote, they couldn't own property, they couldn't do anything, basically, without the permission of a man. It's like essentially like modern-day Saudi Arabia. And yet she can be a warrior. Because why not? Because presumably she'll have some wise old sensei who will have taught her his ways, and he won't be sexist like literally everyone was at that time. No, he'll have taken her under his wing, and he'll have done a fucking Pai Mei on her, and taught her all the tricks of the trade, and then she'll go out and she'll kick butt, and guess what? She'll stab a guy in his balls, and she'll kick him in the balls, and she'll, do all this stuff to his balls, because that's what people like nowadays. Because you never hurt a woman's private area. You don't ever touch their genitals. You can't just stab a woman in the vagina and expect the audience to laugh, but do it to a man's balls, perfectly fine. So she'll go out and she'll kick some man butt. She'll take on, I don't know, fucking ninjas or something, and watch her defeat them left, right, and center. They won't even get a single hit on her because she's a female warrior in the 17th century, because that's realistic. And before you start getting all cunty, I know what you're saying. Oh, realism in a fucking vampire TV show. Do you really think Dracula fucking exists? No. But there's meant to be some fucking universal laws. There's meant to be concepts. There's meant to be, constants that exist. That it's sci-fi. It's not, fucking fantasy. It's on a channel called Sci-Fi. It's like there's a logic to it. You're not meant to just fucking arbitrarily get rid of all this shit. It's not realistic. I mean, it's like how... Oh, by the way, this is a fucking perfect example. A couple of weeks ago, I mentioned, what's his name? Danny Sapini, the guy who came here to WAC, the place where we're recording this, the art center, who used to study here. And, I was talking about him in... what was it? The Bastard Executioner. And I said, I shan't be watching that TV show again. Fucking cancelled. I told you. It was fairly weary, to be honest. But I think I even mentioned in that episode how unrealistic it was that they had a black guy who was with the gang of white guys, just about with them, just fine. They had to come up with a weird constraint to explain, oh, he was from Africa and he was brought over here as a slave or something, and oh, he's a Muslim, but he doesn't want anyone to know he's a Muslim, so he pretends to be a Christian. It's like this whole fucking... Yeah, you can tell it was just shat from the mind of some PC executive who wanted more black guys on TV because there just wasn't enough of them in this historical epic. So in fucking 12th century Wales, you have this black guy who sticks out like a sore thumb. And of course, it's shit like that causes people to lose faith in a project because it just doesn't make sense. It's not racist, it's not anything, it's just realism. It's not being a revisionist fuck and changing things arbitrarily just so that nowadays people can be represented. The mix of women having rights and black people moving everywhere and Middle Easterners moving everywhere and everyone mixing in, it's perfectly fine nowadays. Historically speaking, in a story setting, it doesn't fucking make sense, and it causes people to lose faith in your project. Watch me being proved right when Vanessa Helsing gets cancelled after one. Abominable fucking ratings. I fucking called it, not on this podcast, but I called it when I read the synopsis for Supergirl, the new TV show that's coming out. Oh, sorry, it's already out. It's been shown the last couple of weeks. Supergirl, of course, the derivative, unnecessary incarnation of Superman, often his cousin. Just basically a way to get girls buying comic books.
Yeah, but to be fair, I feel like the Supergirl thing, you've done as much of a leg to stand on because Supergirl has been established as a separate character completely to Superman. It's not reimagining Superman. There's quite a few differences in terms of her story, her path, and she's been reimagined in the New 52, blah, 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 comic book, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, but that's only because they needed a female version of Superman. It's not because she should exist on her own merit. I have no problem with other ones. Like, if you're going to say, okay, one of the best sidekicks ever is Barbara Gordon, Jim Gordon's daughter, who was crippled by the Joker in The Killing Joke, I think it was. The Joker shot her in the back. And she became, a paraplegic, and she used to be at the Watchtower and give Batman all his advice and help him through scenarios and stuff. Fantastic character. No problem with women being in the genre, but it needs to be appropriate. It needs to be realistic. It needs to be not them just defeating men that are twice their size. It needs to be realistic. Supergirl shouldn't have existed because it's a derivation. It's just a shit version. I mean, say what you want about the stories that have come out since, but she shouldn't have existed in the first place. I read about, I was reading about this a couple of months ago. I got a book on the entire history of of Batman, and it goes through all the comic books individually, and week by week, sorry, month by month, and basically tells you the synopsis of them, and the introduction of certain things, facts and figures, trivia and stuff about it. And I was reading about the introduction. It was in the 50s with the incarnation of the, what was it called? The CCA, the Comics Code Authority, basically like just a governmental bureaucracy kind of thing to clamp down on comics and make sure that they weren't corrupting kids and all this kind of stuff. I guess, climbing on the back of McCarthyism and the Reds under the bed and all that kind of thing, just scaring the American public into doing what the government wants. They started really regulating the comic book industry harshly. So much so that Batman, up until that, Batman used to have a fucking gun. No one knows that. Back in the 40s, Batman had a fucking gun. He shot motherfuckers. He killed them. So did Robin. And then up until, that was all in the 40s. That was when, him and fucking Captain America, and not together, but like, him, Superman, Captain America, they were fighting Nazis and shit. That was when men were men, and then the 50s came along and we were pussified. The CCA came along and just fucked everything up. And they forced all the comic book writers to not show blood anymore. They couldn't show blood. It was a fucking fighting thing. You'd have biff, baff, boff and stuff, but you wouldn't be allowed to show the blood spurting from someone's face because it was too violent for the kids. So in order to get around this, you saw a lot more of the rise of like alien type scenarios in the 50s and 60s where Batman would go into space and fight aliens and stuff, and the same with Superman. There was a lot more extraterrestrial adventures for him. And the reason I'm saying this is because one of the diktats that they laid down to the writers was that they had to show a family unit in comic books. They had to show this kind of concept of not being disparate people, not like the central figures not being like single people or like adopted whatever or step this, that or the other. They had to show a core nuclear family, and that's the reason Batwoman, Batgirl, just those two were invented. Up until then, it was Batman and Robin, but it was deemed too kind of like sad. It was like a single father, or there were like kind of insinuations of perhaps he was a homosexual who wanted like an adopted kid or something like that. So in order to remedy that, they literally from fucking nothing invented Batgirl and Batwoman, just so that Batwoman was the mum, Batgirl was the daughter, Robin was the son, and Batman was the dad. They're the only reasons why these female versions of characters exist, is because of deceptive shit like this, that basically it makes it arbitrary. And Supergirl's just another version of that. It's a way to cash in on the, I was going to say the pink pound, but that's something else. It's what's the woman version of the pink pound? It should be the pink pound. I don't know, the eggshell white pound. Just the way to get their fucking money. They don't care about storytelling. They don't care about a genuine origin story for a like I was going to say strong woman, for a woman who actually deserves her position there and brings her strengths to the table, and is perhaps cunning or smart or I don't know, just whatever the fuck it is, whatever her strength is. They don't do that. What they want is just to be fucking derivative, and that's why shit like Supergirl exists. There's a reason why Superman existed first, and then Supergirl came along, and it wasn't the other way. It wasn't Supergirl existed, and then they made Superman. It doesn't happen that way. They don't come up with the fucking original characters. So I won't ever respect a female version of anything, whether it's Supergirl or Vanessa Helsing. They can both go fuck themselves. So yeah, my point being, originally, Supergirl, the ratings have fucking tanked, because you have to remember, this is a CW commission. This is in the same family as Arrow, as the Flash, as what's the new one that's coming out? The Legends of Tomorrow. This was meant to be in the same wheelhouse, not in the same family, because there's a lot of crossover between Arrow and the Flash right now, and soon to be League of Legends as well. They're all going to start crossing over because of obviously Ray Parker being the Atom, and the Captain Cold from the Flash joining the team, and there's the Canary and stuff like that as well. So there's going to be a lot of crossover there. And when Supergirl was being created, they offered the creator, what's his name? It's not David Goyer. It's the name slips me. But he was offered the choice to join the family, to basically make it crossoverable with all the other TV shows, and he chose not to. He chose to go out on his own wings, so there's not going to be any crossovers, at least for the foreseeable future. And I guarantee you he fucking regrets that decision, because now there's no inclination for anyone else to watch. I mean, there was a huge value in that cross-pollination of viewers and stuff. It's kind of what made The Flash stand out and what gave it a leg up, and presumably will do the same with the Legends of Tomorrow. But Supergirl opted out of that, and they're suffering heavily from it. A lot of people tuned into the first one, and the second one as well, third one. After that, the ratings just fucking tanked. And they probably will do a second one, just because it's Supergirl, just because it's part of the superhero family, and they don't want to, hurt the overall franchise, because these things come back like once a decade, so they don't want to hurt future versions of it. But it's not justifiable. It's not the, ratings wise justifiable. It's not financially justifiable with the advertisers. I wouldn't be surprised if it is cancelled after the first one, but I would bet my money it's going to be cancelled after the second one. Maximum third one. No chance it goes over the third one. I hope I don't regret those words in the future. But yeah, so I didn't even fucking watch it, to be honest. I saw the ad online, and it got fucking mauled by the people who watched it. It got people were basically taking the piss out, because it sounded like a Saturday Night Live sketch where the crux is that that Supergirl is in New York or something like that, and she's working for like a fashion agency or something in like almost like The Devil Wears Prada. She has like a boss who it's Sarah Jessica Parker, I think. You're one from Sex and the City. But yeah, it's just the most cliche derivative shit. And this is what the SNL sketch was. This was Scarlett Johansson. I think she played the Black Widow on it. And she had to like be this ditzy. It was literally a trailer of her going through the trials and tribulations of a single girl in Manhattan and stuff, but through the eyes of like the Black Canary. So it was kind of like, I guess, a satirical look at cliches and stuff. But then this trailer comes out of Supergirl, and it's literally word for fucking word the most derivative shit you've ever seen. If you're watching this now, I urge you to go and see the initial trailer for Supergirl, and just read the comments below. They're fucking hysterical. It's like everyone just got the number of it straight away. Like, it wasn't even in the same league as any of the other like male-orientated superheroes. There just wasn't a believability there. And it's aside from it tanking in the ratings as well, like people just aren't liking it. It's not interesting. It's derivative, it's cliche, it's stereotypical, it's trite, it's unoriginal, it's apparently just dull as fuck. And the only thing that sets it apart is the fact that it's kind of superhero-y. It's got like characters that are somewhat recognizable from the comics and stuff, and that's, I think, the only reason why some people are watching it now. Aside from the feminists who will watch anything female-orientated and rant and rave about how they're strong female role models and we need more of this on TV and yada 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 yada. So, yeah, that is Van Helsing with a little bit of Supergirl. So we finish on this. There was a pretty good video this week by Comedy Central. Usually I don't like promos and like adverts and stuff. They're kind of like the shit that people skip now. But Comedy Central here in the UK has just acquired the rights to Malcolm in the Middle. Now, of course, retrospectively, Malcolm in the Middle takes on a slightly different tone, knowing the whole Breaking Bad thing, and Bryan Cranston. And a lot of people like to joke that Hal from Malcolm in the Middle is Bryan Cranston in like Witness Protection or something like that, and where Malcolm in the Middle starts, that's the end of Breaking Bad, and so if you watch them continuously, it segues in. Of course, it's just a bit of fun, but Comedy Central did a pretty funny thing this week where they recut Malcolm in the Middle, like all the episodes they got, but with the kind of knowledge that maybe Hal is actually Walter White. So we're gonna post this link in the description box below. So if you want to watch it along with us, this is Breaking Bad meets Malcolm in the Middle. He's a good man, getting a bad break.
take the fall.
What did you do?
Can't tell you. Yes or no? No questions asked.
Different town,
I was trying an activity.
different family,
My son and I cook. We'll have to try that.
same bad habits.
Get it all figured out.
There's method in the madness. Malcolm in the Middle. Coming soon. News at Comedy Central.
That's pretty good.
Your secrets? No, you don't.
There's him running his pants. Yeah, that's pretty clever. Fair play to Comedy Central. They're on that one. So, with that, we end. Some business to take care of. Again, thank you to WAC for hosting us. Be sure to check them out. We have... if you're... what was I going to say? If you want to donate to the show, find the PayPal link in the description below. Penny or pound, doesn't matter. Just chuck in whatever you can afford. Support the show. And I think that... if you want to send in anything, topics, pictures, videos, whatever the fuck, do be sure to pop us an email at thestrikeshow@hotmail.com. And with that, I bid you adieu. Take it easy. See you next week.